Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Autumn is Here. I'm your host, Francine Crawford. And today we have Sarah Choi. She's going to give us some experiences on how she is caring for her parent and her experience, and share with people to try to give people some insight into caregiving. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to thank you for participating in Autumn is Here. I appreciate it. A show that talks about preparing for seniors, things that you have experienced, things to let people know so they are aware of things ahead of time, so maybe they can adjust their lives and do what they need to do, or have resources and things like that sometimes people don't know about until they're in the midst of being a caregiver. So I just want to start with, just tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am a Korean American. My parents moved here when I was one. I have siblings, a brother, a sister. We were the only ones who moved to this country. Everybody else was in Korea. So moving here was, for my parents, it was difficult to say the least. They didn't speak the language. They had $200 in their pocket. They didn't have a place to live. And then, but what they did have is promise of a job. So they moved to the Philadelphia area and raised me, my brother, my sister there. My brother is in finance. My sister became a pharmacist, and I run operations. In that time, my parents, about 15 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's. She was a nurse for 20 some odd years, and she was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and she had to retire early, as you can imagine, with the physical tax of working as a nurse. It was not conducive to Parkinson's and all of her symptoms. Okay. So that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Can we talk about some of the things that, like, when it first happened, were you, I know she was a nurse, but were you aware of anything, I'm sure you didn't expect it, but were you aware of how to care for her and things like that?
In the beginning, it was, her symptoms were not progressive enough for us to necessitate extra care, because my dad was there and he was able to help her in those moments. But in the beginning, it was, I don't want to say symptom-free, but symptom-free. She was still able to move. My kids were born in that time. She was walking up and down the stairs with my kids as infants. She was up and doing laundry and everything. It wasn't until probably about 10 years after my kids were born that my mom's symptoms started to progress more deeply. And so it was looking at it and saying, perhaps mom shouldn't be living in a house with stairs. And that was 10 years ago. So, and then we look at it and say, perhaps mom should not be doing her own laundry every single day. And, again, my dad was helpful, but he's also old school, and there was only certain things that he could do without pissing off my mom, because, she's type A and it needs to be done a certain way. And if you want to start a fight with her, then don't do it her way. Right. So trying to get my dad up to speed, and he tried his best. And, but he was her rock on many levels. He did a lot for her. And then about 5 years ago, my dad started to display early onset dementia. He was doing things that were a little wacky. And so now here we are, my parents, one who has Parkinson's and the other one who is displaying dementia. What do we do? Like, oh my God, like dad was taking care of my mom. And my brother and I were just kind of in the background, asking and supporting dad in whatever he was doing.
So they live with,
and then we're discovering that. I'm sorry?
They live with you?
No, they live by themselves.
Oh, they lived by themselves. They lived on their own.
They lived on their own. So at that particular time, they were living by themselves. So My brother and I decided that it would make sense for them to live with one of us, and it happened to be me.
Okay.
So my husband and I and my kids moved into the house, a house that was more conducive for my parents. It was one level, no stairs, handicap wide doorways so that her wheelchairs and things like that can get through. So we had them move in with us. At that point, it was a little challenging for me, my husband, and the kids, because what was happening was that my mother, again, the type A, mentally, what Parkinson's does is it just wears down on your physical musculature and your movement, and it's neurological. So her movement wasn't great, but her mental capacity, she was as sharp as they come. Even today, as sharp as they come. She remembers everything. She knows everything. So we had to kind of deal with her physically not being able to do things, but mentally being able to kind of dictate what was going on. So I couldn't stop her from doing things because her mind was telling her, I'm just going to do a load of laundry.
Wow.
I'm like, you can't do a load of laundry. You will hurt yourself, you know? So that became a challenge for us in trying to stop my mother from doing those things because she kept falling and watching someone 24 hours a day to prevent them from doing things. She was going outside trying to prune bushes with like an axe. She has Parkinson's. Like, are you kidding me? Like, why are you going outside? So I'm driving back from work to the house and I see her outside with an axe. I'm like, Mom. And I look at my dad. I'm like, Dad, why does she have an axe? And he's like, I can't stop her. Like, I can't stop her. Right. So those were the moments we kind of had to say, okay, they need to go into a place that can be under constant care, because although I was able to watch her when I was at the house, having my dad and some aides come in, she was just not manageable. And then as my father's memory started to go, it got even worse. Mm-hmm. So I think that for us, it made the most sense to go out and look for a personal care / memory care facility, because they both had different needs at that point, but they wanted to be together. And that part is challenging when you're looking for senior care.
So you looked for a place for both of them, and they had two different issues.
Correct.
It's been very difficult.
It was very difficult. And, I don't know how many folks out there have gone through the kind of the exercise of having to find and research each one of these places, because obviously I know everybody knows that when you look at these places, the cost is astronomical.
Yes.
And so what my parents, although not wealthy people, my parents had nest egg, right? It was for their care. So it sat there, and so there were a lot of facilities that we didn't qualify for because they could afford to go, and other facilities that were just so outrageously priced, like who can live there but, the multimillionaires, grandmothers, Wow. So we found ourselves in kind of this weird pocket. And then the research was, my brother lives in Pennsylvania. My family originally lived in Pennsylvania, and I live in New York. So we started looking at places between Pennsylvania and New York. So it was New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Just looking at different facilities to try to accommodate. And we found many that had both the memory care and the personal care. But again, they were the higher end ones that were ridiculously priced. Like each person, just for the apartment in itself, was costing, I don't know, $12,000 for two people.
Right.
That's without care. That's just the apartment within the facilities, right?
Wow.
And then there's care on top of that. So it was a challenging. But then in our research, we were finding that there are facilities that are that will look at your financial situation, see what you have, and evaluate whether you could stay there. And what they do is most places where you're a private payer. Um, and once you run out of money, you're out. You're going to one of the, state-run facilities.
Okay.
And then there are other ones that are just straight, state-run facilities or federal, whatever it is, Medicare.
Mhm.
And then what we found was there were some, and very few and far between, where you would do the pay down, the spend down of all the assets to pay for the care, and they would not kick you out if you ran out of money, because they would have private funding, and angel money, what they call angel money, to keep those folks who had the pay down, so that they could stay in the same place. So we found a couple organizations that did that. So for us, I think that made the most sense, because we kind of fell in the hybrid of they have too many assets for us to have government assistance for them. And they don't have enough assets to go to some of those, alt spas, as I call them, So yeah, that was kind of our research in this whole process, which I found very enlightening.
Very interesting that you mentioned that, about that's available, but you had to research it.
Yeah.
How long did it take you, can you give me some insight on how long did it take you? How many places did you go to? Did you just do it online? Did you visit the places?
We visited all the places. So between me and my brother, we probably visited about, I would say, between 12 and 15 places a piece. Between, he was doing Pennsylvania and Southern New Jersey, and I was doing New York and Northern New Jersey. Yeah, I would say, I know I did about 15 different places, and it ran from your Sunrise and the Jewish community centers to some more exclusive ones, Brookdale, which was unbelievable. And he did the same. So we found it's a Artman Lutheran organization, and the Masonic Village. So those are organizations that are privately funded, and they do the supplemental if someone should need it, and they do fundraising every single year. So we found those two particular locations that met our needs, and they both had the memory care department and wing, as well as the personal care. So there were moments where my dad, when he was having an episode, he would go into the memory care, and my mom would be in the personal care. But my mom was able to go to my dad's wing to have lunch and have all their meals together and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So you didn't find anything,
So
as far as the government,
yeah, it was hard.
To cover anything.
I mean, it was like a non-starter.
Practically, how did that work with you? Because I'm not sure where it was located. So practically, with your day-to-day and your lifestyle, how did that work? Was it a location that you can get to? Were you able to locally?
Yeah, like the place itself is about 20 minutes away from my brother. So he goes more regularly than I go. I'm based in New York, so I go at least once, twice a month. But he goes once a week, just to make sure everything is on the up and up. And, the folks there are great. They're great with her. We always look for the signs of making, elder abuse and things like that. And none of that is there. They're all very, very engaging and lovely people.
Awesome.
I think, our biggest challenge is, because my mother wasn't raised here, and as her disease starts to progress more and more, what's happening is that she's less and less vocal in English. She is speaking more Korean. So between having some speech impediments with the Parkinson's, she's speaking Korean. So it's doubly hard for me to understand what she needs or what she wants. So we hired a Korean aide to come in. Okay. Here's what happened. What we noticed, my brother and I walked into some of these places, and they're, again, some wonderful places, But I looked around and looked at the ethnic mix of the folks that were staying at these places. And when I tell you, there was no one that looked like me or even close.
Okay.
So that was also very challenging, because we're looking at it and saying, my parents are older at this point, and they see comfort in becoming familiar with the surroundings, right? And so not having Asians around them was jarring for me and my brother. Like, oh my God, there is no one that looks like them. And, and speaking to some of the directors, we're like, you have a great place here, but there's no one that looks like us. And they're like, part of it feels like it's cultural, right? Many people of color and immigrants don't go to places like this. Mm-hmm. They just don't. Most of them care for them in their home. And I was like, not one. I mean, we looked at 40 places. 40 places. You're telling me not one between New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania? Not one? We could not find any. It's shocking.
Wow.
It's shocking. So that also kind of took a toll on us. Like, are we doing the right thing? Is this the right thing? To do this to my mom and dad?
The emotional toll, because you have so many complications with them, especially you have two parents and they have two different things. Then they're not from this country. And like when you get an illness, sometimes it deteriorates your language. It does. And your understanding and things like that. And plus, they don't have a lot of places that have people from your culture in them. So emotionally, between you and your brother, like I could see you, it makes sense that you would kind of second guess and like, should we do this, or is there another way to do this? Like, how did that feel? How did you go through that?
So they happen to have this particular agency in the Pennsylvania area, because we ultimately wind up putting them in the a senior care place in Pennsylvania. They have what is Pacific and Asian American Senior Association, and they deal specifically with Asian health aides. And so they're few and far between, but they try to find someone who would be a healthcare aide in, from your country. So we found someone to come in 2 to 3 days a week to the senior center to stay with my mom, so that she has the comfort of having someone who is of her culture. Mm-hmm. So we pay for that separately. Again, these are all private pay type of things. Wow. So this is not something that is government, or it is just private pay. So we pay her separately, even though there are very capable professionals at my mom's facility. The fact that a Korean person coming in, she feels like she's more open to participate in more, activities. And, she has started a garden there. And so, that kind of stuff. So she is much more engaged with someone who is like her. So this, I'm looking to get her more and have the person come in 5 days a week or more often, but it's very challenging. It's a hard position to kind of fill as a full-time person that's not working in the actual facility. So yeah, we're still working on it.
Wow. And I'm sure it's costly also.
It is costly. But, again, if my brother and I can't be with her, and that's part of the challenge too, right? He works, I work. Right. My sister passed away about 12 years ago. My dad passed away from COVID. And so at the facility, he was one of the early patients of COVID. So he and my mom tested on the same day, and they were living in the same apartment. So mom and dad tested on the same day. And 7 days later, my dad passes, and my mom did not experience one symptom, not one. Wow. It was, wow. That's when you realize that COVID was one of those things that it just simply didn't hit everybody the same way. Right. For my dad to decline in 7 days, and my mom literally had 0 symptoms.
Wow. So
It
how was
was
that?
shocking.
How was that for her, for him? Because,
Oh, that,
that's her
yeah,
rock,
that
that's
was,
her husband,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
It was, again, a lot of shifting, and she's still the only person that was allowed to be in the room with my father was me when they took him off the ventilator.
Mm.
Um, and it was, I'm on the phone with my brother and my mom and doing FaceTime with them. And, you know, we all talked about it over and over again. I was talking to doctors and the nurses and all the folks at the hospital about his decline. And we, again, discussed it as a family. And then my brother couldn't go to the hospital because my nephew is immune compromised. So him going to the hospital just wasn't
Right.
conducive. He couldn't go. It was just not possible. And so obviously my mom couldn't go because the community was on lockdown.
Mhm.
Like on lockdown, she couldn't go anywhere. No one can come in, no one can go out.
Uh-huh.
And so it was only me. So I'm in the hospital. I'm FaceTiming my brother and my mom. We talked about it the night before about not keeping him on the ventilator. It in like the last 3 days, there was no improvement in his oxygen intake. It wasn't. It was a. He was on the ventilator and he wasn't getting any better. So we had to make the decision and take him off the ventilator. Um, After doing that and being on FaceTime, my father passes. And, when things start to open up a little bit more, I go and visit my mom. And she says to me, she's like, I didn't get a chance. Her memory now is starting to go. And she says, um, I didn't get a chance to say bye to your father. And no one gave me the decision. No one talked to me about it.
Mm.
So that is like, stabbing me in the heart.
It's
Now I
heartbreaking.
have to have this conversation again. Yeah.
Right, right.
Um, about how, so I go through the whole scenario with her and say, Mom, we discussed this, me, you, and David discussed this. And I was on FaceTime with you and David, with Daddy. And she was like, I don't remember a thing, Sarah. And so she keeps trying to track back to try to figure out what happened. So I continue to have to try to remind her of what happened and why. Um, so that part has been challenging. So in addition to all these other things that have happened, she is forgetting. She's starting to forget. She's 80 now, and although that's pretty young, um, I think her concept of time is starting to kind of
Yeah.
get a little shaky.
That's so much. That's so much. And I know that's a lot on you. Were you able to get any kind of help for you, like for a caregiver support or anything like that? Did you reach out? Is there anything that you and your brother are able to get?
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely gave us, some support groups and some hotlines that to call and things like that. And we didn't really reach out to them. I think that the two of us kind of commiserate with each other, as well as my friends. I mean, my friends are very supportive, and a lot of them have gone through similar situations with their parents. And so I haven't physically, but I speak to a therapist on a regular basis and just kind of go through,
Okay.
you know, um, not just this, but so many other things in life.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. And my brother is more of a concern for me at this point because he's not one of those guys. He's not looking to seek therapy on some level. He is very, very, he's an empath, but he is also, um, he isolates himself and kind of thinks, it's always reeling in his brain somehow.
Okay.
So trying to convince him between me and his wife, we try to convince him to, but he's always fine. He's always fine. I don't know how long it will last on fine, but
Wow.
yeah, it's
Wow.
challenging.
Where are
Hmm.
you at now? Are you okay, you've accepted everything? Is it just is still new things happening every day, or you just everything is you pretty much know that she's exhausted all the different things, you've done everything that you could do, the place is a good place, you're comfortable with her there, even though she may fall or things like that?
Yeah.
So are you at a place where your acceptance of her situation and the future?
No, I mean, it's hard, right? And so this goes back to the psychological part of it. Like, here's this woman who was capable my entire life and took care of us my entire life in every way, shape, or form. And I feel like it's not enough.
It's not enough. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you do? I mean, the short of her, even with her coming to live with me, it's not enough. I mean, I couldn't, and just because of my circumstance, I couldn't take care of her the way in which she needs to be taken care of. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, there's no way my mother wouldn't be here to take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of look at it from that perspective, and it's heart-wrenching. I live with a certain level of guilt every single day about it. But for all intents and purposes, she's in a place where they are caring for her and where she is safe. I wish I had an aide who is Korean to give her some more time and some more social engagement on some level. But I feel like there's not much more that my brother or I could do beyond what's happening.
Okay.
But yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Do I think it's enough? No. Mm-hmm. I'm living with a tremendous amount of guilt on a regular basis. Because it's my mom.
Right, because it's your mom, and that's totally understandable. A lot of people feel that way. From a parent's perspective, when they're raising a child and they do everything for their child and things like that, and that's the position of a mom. As a daughter or a son, you're not raising her. You know what I mean? That she's raising you and she's teaching you, and it's different. It's a different perspective where she's raising you, she's teaching you, she's caring for you. She's that person that is supposed to be the one that guides you and gets you to a place where you can, be a good person, stand on your own, go after your ambitions and stuff like that. That's what they want for you. So they try to get you to that point. And I'm sure she's gotten you to that point. So she's done what she was supposed to do. At this point with her, it's different because she had her career, she's educated, she has a career, she had her lifestyle, and now it's kind of going backwards. So it's not the same thing as like caring for a child that's learning each and every day. She knows, what's going on. Well, at least even when she had Parkinson's, she was a nurse, so she understood certain, so there's certain things that you can't do anything about.
That's right.
You do the best you can. You do the care that you can. You work as hard as you can to find the place for her, the proper facility. And another thing is that there are not enough places that have the help that's needed, and that's affordable. Yeah. So it's also that too within the cities and the states, just to really to consider these things and think about these things about having places that ethnically can support the people who need the help there, that financially give more subsidies or whatever to people, because at the end of life people are living longer. Yeah. And you might have something that you might put away some money or something like whatever, a property that you can be in a place for 5 years. But when you live 10 years down the line, I have an aunt that's 90. I have another aunt that's 100. You know what I mean? If they start deteriorating at 80, that's like 20 years of facility money that, so, a lot of it is the way we're set up here.
Yeah.
The attention and the benefits and resources that should go to this kind of situation is not there. Is not there.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
And you
It's
have
true. I mean,
right.
when you look at it, like societies like Japan have this elderly population that just keeps growing and growing and growing, and those old people are doing petty crime so that they could go to jail and get meals and taken care of, because when you're in jail, you get taken care of.
Really?
But as an old person, you don't get taken care of. So they're creating, they've been conducting petty crimes so that they could be incarcerated.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. But it's the way of the world at this point in time, because it's not set up for old people.
It's not.
It's not set up for the senior society. It's set up for the young and the ones who are wealthy. It's not set up for the folks who are hardworking individuals who are aging. So what my parents did when we were younger is they would write gift checks to us, each one of us, every year, so that it wasn't for any particular reason, whatever that the maximum was that year, they would write, so that when it came time for their care and they have to do the spend down, that would be exempt from the clawback of the funds as part of their assets. So my immigrant parents had this tremendous foresight when it came to that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So my mom would do that. My brother and I are joint holders in accounts with them. Mm-hmm. So in the event of, they're deceased, that we always have some sort of control over the estate, and for it not to go into a space of, oh my God, how do we get that? How do we do this? Is this going to be probated? It's a year. What do we need to do? Those kind of things. So, so they're just like real simple things that you kind of look at and say, they had so much foresight when it came to that. And I think that many people don't understand that there are things that you could do, because the reality is my mom is like, I'd rather spend down all of this and get some government subsidies for my care than have to spend it on one of these places over and over again. And my brother and I are like, you work this hard so that you had good care. This is what the money is for. We don't, you know what I mean? For us, we're like, we don't need the money. Okay. You need the money for your care. Mm-hmm. And so that's the conversation that we have on a regular basis, even still, because she's like, we're wasting our money. You're giving it away. And I'm like, no, this is what it's for. I read this article about these two ladies in Brooklyn, who were living in their houses. Their spouses passed away. Their families have grown. And what they did was they moved in together and became roommates. And they were like 80, 90 years old, and they were roommates. And what they realized is, we'd rather live with people who are our people, right? And pay for, the aides and things like that to come to my house because I'm comfortable here. Mm-hmm. So I read this article and I said, I spoke to Octavia and a few of my other friends. I'm like, listen, my house right now is set up for old people. Like, each bedroom has a bathroom. We're handicapped accessible. When my kids leave for college, everybody's moving in here. We're going to have all the home health aides, cleaning people, cooks. They're all coming here. Each of us will take whatever the cost is and split it. Yeah. So we'll all pull it together and all of us are going to live here. I told Mom this recently, and my mom's like, that is genius.
What would you say to someone after you've gone through this experience? Now, everybody's experience is different, and we all know that. But what would you say that would help, or something that maybe you had to go through, but maybe you can give some kind of insight how to, get through certain things, or certain things that you might want to do first, or anything like that? Is there something that you would tell somebody that was listening that maybe approach with this situation?
I think that in this whole entire process, the only thing there, it is so frustrating to go through this. And I think that accepting of of the situation that you have and what people have to offer is not good enough. So them telling you, oh, you're going to have to do this. Well, that's not good enough. It's my parent. I'm looking for the best possible care that I can. And there is something, you will find something. You just have to have the patience to do the research, to meet the right people, to get the right information. Because a lot of these folks, when you're looking for places for your parents and for the care, if you have the money, they're willing to talk to you. If you don't have the money, they're not willing to talk to you. And they're really very cheap about the information that they give you. They're like, well, if you don't have it like this might not be the place for you. And then you come to find out there are other programs that are available that could be the right place for them. Mm-hmm. So I think that really just not accepting of those certain answers until you really do a thorough deep dive into whatever it is that you're researching, because it's ever changing too. There are so many different things that change in terms of the care, what's covered. It's constantly changing. Like for me, I never knew about this Pacific Asian healthcare system for my mom until I started doing more research. Like it started with statistics on finding Asian people in these facilities. Where are they? So I'm like, where are they? So I just started going through it, and I happened to run across it. But that's the only reason why. Like that was very, very specific to my need. But again, just the constant researching until you can find something that leads you to the next thing that might be what you're looking for, I think is really important. Stopping at what people have told you that needs to be done. There's never one way to get there. Never.
Well, I just want to thank you for participating in Autumn is Here and giving us the information. I mean, it's so interesting. And I'm actually very grateful that your mom, you're able to have conversations with her and things like that. And her reasoning is good. So, and, you're able to tell her the things that you've done and you can have conversation. And that's a blessing. That's a blessing because, my mom had Alzheimer's and she wouldn't remember anything and she didn't know what I was saying. So that's a blessing. And I'm glad to hear that you have those conversations with her and you can talk about your friends and she, remembers and stuff like that. So that's really good. But thank you for sharing. I know it was hard. I know you went through a lot and I just appreciate your time. And I'm sure that this story will help someone. And
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I pray that this will help someone and somebody would be able to navigate their situation because of some of the things that you've said and that you share with us tonight. So I thank you again, Sarah, for taking your time.
I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Anytime.